Patrick Davis, Ty Henderson, and the crew back in the Horn headquarters in Austin, Texas on the banks of 360. But we are cranking and ready to roll right here in downtown Arlington, Texas. Jay Gilligan's our location this morning. Beautiful spot, great spot. Place is huge. It's like a maze of spots, but it's a great spot to come. And if you're already up here in Arlington looking for a place to grab a drink, grab some breakfast. They're going to have a buffet going and get on the shuttle for $12 and right over to the AT&T Stadium and back when the game is over. It's a great spot. Jay Gilligan's, an Arlington tradition since 1979, and a perfect place to post up and get ready for an 11 o'clock kick, Texas and Oklahoma State for the Big 12 Championship. Jerry Hamilton and had a great game last night to launch championship weekend with Washington's upset of Oregon. It was an upset by the line makers, but Washington already beat them once this year. Let's hope that game that we saw last night, that thriller in Vegas, is a sign of things to come today and tonight with Championship Saturday.
No, I think it absolutely will be. I think today's going to be a great day for college football. You know, last night what was so interesting with Washington beating Oregon for the second time this year was, you know, Kalen DeBoer, when he needs to run the ball, they can really run the football. They have a really good offensive line with no seniors and a great scheme. But I thought that was so interesting last night because they're a pass-heavy team. But when Washington has needed to run the ball this year at USC, they ran it. Everybody beat up on USC, but they still got it done. And last night, Dylan Johnson rushed was for 152 yards. And Washington jumped out to that early 20-3 lead, and I think that's something we need to lead into today. Getting off to a fast start is very important in these games. Not getting behind the eight ball, not getting down a couple of scores early. And we talked about that yesterday at Terry Black's, Aaron, is at Texas. They don't necessarily – I'm not saying go down and go bang, bang, touchdown. But what I am saying is no false starts. No holds on second and medium, no holds on third and short, right? Just give yourself an opportunity to get off to a really good start. And if Texas does that, I think Oklahoma State will struggle to defend Texas, both in the pass and the run, over the course of the game. I predicted 41-20 on Texas football and Inside Texas, and I'm sticking with it.
No doubt about it. That fast start would be big. To play with a lead against this team, I think would we've seen them get walloped by the likes of South Alabama and Central Florida. This is one of those teams, if you pull out to a lead to, they're going to have a hard time.
Yes.
They want to play this game, and shorten this game and play, within a touchdown or even with a lead with Ollie Gordon in that running game. Texas, who has gotten off to fast starts at times this year, has an opportunity, and I think you're exactly right, to make Oklahoma State kind of abandon what they would like to do in this game. And that's how they've won 7 of 8 games coming out of their bye week after a 2-2 start. Oklahoma State is, pound Ollie Gordon, who's likely to win the Doak Walker Award, nation's best running back, Big 12's best running back, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. He'll be a factor today, but if you're making them play from behind, he's less of a factor in this football game. Longhorns have the better pieces across the board, all 3 phases. To get this going. We are at Jay Gilligan's, as I say, in downtown Arlington, about a mile from AT&T Stadium. They do have the shuttle, as we said, and so we'll tell you about that. But, man, really cool place. Already a lot of Longhorn fans rolling in here. They're waiting for the doors to open at 7:30, Jerry. A lot of these Longhorn fans beat us here.
Yes, they did. No, I parked at like 7:03, I think it was, and there were about 15 people waiting outside already. This is the Aaron, biggest day for Texas football since when, in your opinion? I guess it's 09, right? I mean,
yeah, 09.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And that's been the amazing part. And Patrick Davis is back at the Horn headquarters, and you can weigh in on this too, Patrick, with biggest day since. I mean, 09 was to go to a championship. That was in Arlington. That was a game against Nebraska. Controversial finish, of course, with the Ndamukong Suh game where he was just wrecking shop.
Oh, my gosh.
Crushing Texas, and the Colt McCoy. Was there a second left on the clock? Did it get out of bounds and hit the camera, whatever that was? And then a field goal to go to the Rose Bowl. But that really is, quite honestly, unfortunately for Texas, and we know the reasons why. The long, winding road back to this point. That was the last time Texas was really relevant on a national stage as far as the big conversations of college football. It's been a bit, to say the least. And here they are. You win this game, you're again relevant on the big conversations of college football because you'll sit back and watch the rest of the championship games today. You've got to set, and I thought you said it right yesterday, you and Bobby Burton, set the tone.
Set the tone this morning.
Set the tone. Washington made a statement last night.
Yes.
They're an undefeated conference champion at 34-31. Left no doubt. Texas can really make a statement today with a picking up where they left off on Black Friday against Texas Tech and send a message that, hey, we're one of the best 4 teams in the country. Patrick, you can weigh in. Most important game for Texas football since when for you? Is that you on board with the 09 conversation?
Yeah. I mean, when's the last time you had a chance to at least have the door open for a national championship?
Yep.
And that's the reality. This is the next time since 09 where the door is open. We haven't been able to walk through it yet, but the door is open.
Exactly right. And, you may get in, you may get out. I mean, last night was, I don't want to say it was a bad thing for Texas. It was a good, it was a statement for Washington. But there is a scenario by which there are 4 undefeated conference champions, which is going to be, if you're a Longhorn fan, Georgia wins, Michigan wins, and Florida State finds a way, maybe with a third-string quarterback to win. I don't think that you get in that scenario. I don't think they're going to, it's never happened before to have 4 undefeated conference champions in a Power 5 situation. Next year it'll be a Power 4 situation, but this year it's Power 5, and if you have 4 and you're a 1-loss conference champion out of the Big 12, you're going to be 5th and playing in the Cotton Bowl or somewhere, and that would just be unfortunate. But you're in the conversation, Jerry, and that's important not just for your program, but you cover recruiting like no one else with Inside Texas. The resonation that has across, high schools across Texas. Steve Sarkisian setting the tone that we are here and we're headed to the SEC.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is a huge game today for Texas. Look, whatever happens with the college football playoff, obviously that's a big part of the equation. We'll get into that. It's supposed to be raining heavily in Charlotte for that ACC championship game tonight. Like 50-60% chance of rain for most of that game, which will be interesting. But, for Texas in recruiting, I mean, look, a win today, and this team has had a unbelievable season because, look, this season for future recruits in 25-26, and you also have portal, which is impacted by Texas' success this year as well, and that portal window opens December 4th, coming up here on Monday. But, when Texas went to Alabama and won, there were 150 prospects in the stands that were guests of Alabama. And the states that were really represented were Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. And, with Texas moving to the SEC, kids in Georgia haven't been – those are the prospects. It's a Shard Choice, Kyle Flood. They've tried to recruit in the Atlanta area. But those are the toughest kids right now to kind of break through with because Georgia's on top of college football. Then you have Alabama. Then you have Auburn. Then you have Clemson to the east, right? And you have FSU. So there are so many top programs that kind of encircle the Atlanta area. But that was those kids' first time to really see Texas play in person.
Wow.
And they left an impression, right? And the result of that is you're going to see more kids step foot on campus in Austin for Steve Sarkisian, where they can evaluate more kids in person in this 25 and 26 classes. And a win today is just more of it. Look, you have all the eyeballs on you. Now, there's a lot of kids in Texas still playing playoff games. Guys committed to Texas, whatnot. But there's the majority of high school kids in this state and in the region east are going to be watching college football today. So they watch Texas beat Alabama. They have a chance now to watch Texas once again with the eyes of the nation on Texas this morning. And these are huge games for recruiting. So if Texas finished 5th in the college football playoff, if they're sitting there 12-1 with a Big 12 championship and a win over Alabama, and in that conversation, and the conversation for Texas would be, should these guys have got in? That kind of creates even more momentum in recruiting. You're not going to have 6, 7, 8 guys drafted. But today's a huge day for recruiting for Steve Sarkisian and the staff because it's not just high school, it's portal.
It's portal. It's portal, which opens Monday. It's kind of open as it is now, Patrick, and that's the opportunity you have here today. Make a statement. The Longhorns won the first Big 12 championship. That was a statement game, we thought, right? I mean, that was mid-'90s, John Makovic, the 21-point underdogs to mighty Nebraska, and the Longhorns up and with the James Brown promise or your guarantee, go ahead and beat Nebraska with Ricky Williams, and thought maybe that might launch Texas, but obviously we know what happened next year, the following year with John Makovic, but that ushered in the Mac Brown era at Texas, and Steve Sarkisian feels like he has this Texas program on a track that Mac Brown did in the early '90s into the late '90s into the early 2000s, and an opportunity to solidify that today. That is the opportunity, Patrick. So a lot to root for and a lot to like. What'd you make of the game last night, Patrick? Washington 34, Oregon 31. Washington got out to the lead early and held on. Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix showing that they are one of the best 4 teams in the country.
Yeah, and I mean, I think glass half full for Texas fans when you look at this is that everybody in that room that was saying that Texas was better than Oregon can walk back into that room tomorrow and go, I told you Texas was better than Oregon.
Yes.
You guys,
Well,
I know you want power wins over nobodies and big style points. They don't mean anything. So Texas needs to go out and cover and do their job. And I'll tell you the reality today, Texas needs to win the fourth quarter, not just because Oklahoma State's really good in the fourth quarter, but it's been one of their problems all season long. You go win that fourth quarter or you're up by 40 points and you don't, they score 7-0. It's not as big of a deal. But if you win that fourth quarter for Texas and you can go into that committee and go, look, we're doing the same thing Oregon's was doing when you love them, except we're doing it against good teams, not Pac-12 teams that weren't that good. And then when they go up against good teams, they could barely beat USC. They didn't have a great game against USC. They lost to Washington twice. I think you can start to make that argument now that Texas is the best one loss, and those guys supporting Texas are going to be a little bit better off now that they can prove. We told you Texas was better than Oregon.
I think it's a great point, Patrick. Such a great point because, look, the style points have counted this year. And Deion Sanders brought more eyeballs to Pac-12 football this year. And right about the time Texas lost to OU, what happens? Oregon's pounding Colorado, who at the time looked like a good football team, then went on to lose 8 of the last 9. So Deion Sanders brought more eyes to the Pac-12, and then the style points really started to matter. Look, Bo Nix had unbelievable statistical season, right? I mean, credit to him. But to Patrick's point, I totally agree that I think now, after that loss last night, that committee, if Texas goes out and handles their business, they're going to look at Texas a little differently. They're going to say, hold on now. Texas beat Texas Tech 57-7. We probably underestimated this football team a little bit with our eye test because Oregon had a pick 6 late. Joey McGuire didn't get a 2-point conversion. They won in Lubbock 38-30. I know it was early in the season, but the way they were looking at Oregon now changes if Texas goes out and wins today. I think they start saying, okay, we were probably wrong about Oregon on some level, and we probably underestimated Texas. There's not a better scenario for Texas today than that, of course, with the understanding that Louisville needs to go win in Charlotte tonight in the rain.
Yeah, you need a little help, but you also can do there's a roadmap. I think you guys just laid it out about Oregon being eliminated and Washington solidifying. That helps Texas in my mind. Because there was the debate, why is Texas continually behind Oregon in the rankings? Longhorns can make a statement on that today. And then, the way that the schedule falls, we talked about 2001, where the Longhorns knew if they would won the game against Colorado.
Yes.
Rod Babers is a part of that team. They're going to the national championship game, and I think they tightened up. Rod Babers believes that the Mac Brown in the locker room before the game said, guys, when we win, we're going to the Rose Bowl. And a lot of guys seized up. They didn't realize it, and that Longhorns don't have that pressure. They can make their statement, set the tone, and then sit back. And Steve Sarkisian at that point from 2:30 or 3 o'clock this afternoon on can do the politicking tour.
Yeah.
He can join every game.
Oh, that speech is already written.
Oh, yeah.
John Bianco's going to hand it right to him after the game if Texas wins.
Data points, copy points. Here's your bullet points.
I see you holding 7 pieces of paper right now, Aaron. That's what Sark's going to walk to the podium with, okay?
And be proud of it. To be 12-1, a win over Alabama, the only loss, a narrow loss to your rival at the Cotton Bowl, where you couldn't hold them out for a minute and 12 seconds. But either way, that's a great resume. If Louisville were to help you out, as you say, Jerry Hamilton, in a rainstorm, or at least in the rain with maybe a third-string quarterback for Florida State, there is an opportunity. Let me mention, thanks to our friends here at Jay Gilligan's, Randy Ford and the team, this place is, these people couldn't be nicer. This is a great spot to come pregame, food, drinks, getting you ready for the game. And then the shuttle, only $12. You can park here in downtown Arlington, wherever you can find a parking spot. $12 shuttle over and back. You don't have to mess with Jerry Jones parking, and the price is there. And then,
considering parking prices at Jerry World, this is like the biggest savings of all time.
Right. Well, what you get to get in a nice, comfortable environment with a bunch of Longhorn fans, watch us and hang out with us, then get to the game, come back. Your car will be here and ready to go, but then you could watch Georgia, Alabama in the SEC Championship game. Jay Gilligan's in downtown Arlington is our location. And the Horns Big 12 Championship game coverage is brought to you by One Source Gas, your Texas compressed gas leader. My friend Richard Strever and his team, if your business has compressed gas needs and you're looking for a new CO2 or compressed gas provider, I promise you there's a reason One Source is taking market share and growing like crazy, because they do it better. They're more on point. It's about personal relationships for your business. If you need it, they're going to get it to you on time and without hassle. 512-214-8484 or online at OneSourceGasATX.com. That's One Source Gas. Make sure you spell out the word one, O-N-E, OneSourceGasATX.com, and our friends here at Jay Gilligan's as we crank this thing up. All right, Patrick, so the mood is set, the tone is set. Let's pick this thing up. We got 3 hours of conversation to be had from Arlington, from Austin. We'll check in with Sam Mays, an All-American at Oklahoma State along the way. His thoughts on this game from the Oak State side. Also, Rod Babers will join us with some pregame thoughts as well as he battles through his protocols from his house. Ty Henderson will join us. Patrick's in the Horn headquarters. Jerry Hamilton from Inside Texas is here. I am here. You are here. It's the Horn on Championship Game Day. Bowl experience. It was really pretty cool. But this is Oklahoma State, and we'll see. We'll see what they're. I mean, if you saw their game with BYU last Saturday, when they kicked off for a chance to clinch a spot in the Big 12 championship game, the stadium was half empty.
Yes.
In Stillwater. It was that was such a weird game. You turned it on if you were a fan watching it, and it just looked like a preseason game almost. It was kind of an apathetic crowd. It was raining, and Oklahoma State was terrible for the first 2 quarters of the game, and they were awful. It was like, what? It looked like they did in September,
right,
when they stumbled out of the gate 2-2. And but as you said, Patrick, the calling Mike Gundy the cockroach of college football, you just can't kill him. And to turn the conversation to Oklahoma State, that's the opponent today, Longhorns,
yeah.
and we can't lose sight of that. What we saw in that game against BYU? They made some adjustments. They stopped turning the football over. They rallied, and they won that football game in overtime, and found a way. And that's kind of the recipe. It kind of was emblematic of their season, where they were 2-2 and looked a mess, and then they got into their bye week and abandoned the zone blocking scheme for more of a gap concept on the offensive line, more of a power game. Realized that Ollie Gordon, their backup running back, was their best running back and their best player. Settled on a quarterback in Alan Bowman. Yeah. The 6th-year senior, to put some stability in their passing game. And, here they are. Mike Gundy, MacGyver, making things happen to get to the Big 12 title game. Pretty impressive what he's done.
No, we said it jokingly yesterday, but he may be the first coach in college football history that benched his son and then went on to win Coach of the Year in his conference. I mean, look, they had the 3-quarterback rotation going early in the season with Bowman, Gundy, and Rangel, Garrett Rangel from Frisco area. With Gunnar Gundy, that is, and they would rotate every 2 series, right? Ollie Gordon only had 19 carries after 3 games. It's amazing he has 1,580 yards. Considering the first 3 games, he only had 19 carries. Heck, he's had that in second halves of games since that point, a couple second half of games. But to Gundy's credit, he had to make real decisions and real tough decisions and changes to save his season. And I really think that the biggest decision wasn't actually quarterback. It was changing the run scheme and the run game that there was a plan headed into this year, and going from more of a zone scheme to more of a downhill pull 2 power scheme, and really using Ollie Gordon and letting him maximize what he could do. I think that was the biggest change they made, because that offensive line was struggling in the zone scheme, and to switch that up after 3 games and get that offensive line comfortable and go with Ollie Gordon, who wasn't a great practice player, but they were like, okay, they didn't necessarily trust him early in the season. Okay, this is going to be our best chance to win games this year. It has been a huge decision for Mike Gundy, and the right decision. The interesting thing, Alan Bowman, 10 interceptions, 10 touchdowns in Big 12 play. I think that's going to be so key today, is can Texas get pressure on him, and can they get Oklahoma State in enough 3rd and longs to where they force Bowman to throw the ball in some situations, in some areas on the field where he doesn't ideally want to, and how does Gundy protect against that?
Yeah, that's well said. And, I wonder, Patrick, if that's – Mike Gundy's typically ahead of the curve with the big picture of college football. The changes he made offensively were over the course of the last 15, 16, 17 years, ahead of the curve. Right, to go into the 3-high defense. He was the first coach to go there with the 3-3-5 and 3-high stack. And you wonder, in this day and age of college football, and this is more of a big picture philosophical conversation, going to a 12-team playoff where the top 4 conference champions are guaranteed a spot. Right, essentially. And the portal, where your roster is going to turn over so much more than typically it has in college football. I mean, Mike Gundy really treated September like a preseason. I need game time. I can't evaluate all these new players that have come in training camp. I need games. I need to see them, because you said it. Ollie Gordon was not a good practice player,
right?
But I need to see him in the game to know that he's one of our best players. And almost like an NFL preseason, Patrick, where you need to see it, and then you can evaluate what it is and make some changes. I'm not saying it's going to be this dramatic as Mike Gundy, but September could become more of a feeling out ground, because if you're in one of the 4 power conferences and you win the conference, you're going to be in the 12-team playoff at the end of the year.
Yeah, and especially as much changes. Gundy had with this team
Yes.
in the offseason. I mean, he had more change through the portal than most teams do, unless they have a major coaching change. He didn't have a coaching change. He was the head coach and had that much. What I thought was so interesting, Patrick, what he said Monday in his press conference was, people were asking, he kind of said, we're a less talented team this year, but we have a better culture fit, and some of those small school guys that we brought in here are better culture fit. So while we may not be as talented, we're actually a better team. But when you have that much turnover, it is going to take you a while to define those roles and make those decisions. And quarterback was so interesting for them this year because Alan Bowman has that concussion history, right? So it was interesting that he had been out a while, comes back. He's at Oklahoma State. Hadn't played a lot of football since he was at Texas Tech. I mean, if you just go look at at Michigan for 2 seasons, he threw 11 passes in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
That's not really playing football, a lot of football, guys. So it's his third system, right, for Alan Bowman, and you didn't really truly know what you were going to get out of him at this point. So they had a quarterback competition. But Mike Gundy, to your point, Aaron, is, he said in that Monday press conference, look, we had a lot of change, but it made us a better team. So he had as much turnover as anybody did in the country, and it shows how great of a coach he actually is, that he's put this thing together and he's in the position he is today.
Yeah, and I'll throw in that there's part of it of, I think he understands the game of, I'm not a Texas, I'm not an Oklahoma. I don't need to schedule a really hard Power 5 game in my schedule. I can schedule Arizona State and a couple of gimmies because it doesn't matter for us because it's not a money thing. We're not making a ton of money by playing a big team. So why try and match those guys? Let's do what Oklahoma State does, and then we'll be able to figure out where we're at, and we'll be able to build the way we are because we can't recruit like them. We can't pay like them. So we might as well do what we have to do as the smaller team than trying to be that, because Texas's and Alabama's, Georgia's, all those schools, the money in the big games early, they're still going to do it. But for every other team that is not necessarily, TV networks are not giving you prime time on week 2, then you may say, well, if you're not giving us a 7:00 game on week 2, then we don't really care about you. We'll do what we want to do.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the future. I mean, I think we all are. I mean, whether you agree with where it's going and NIL and portals and 12-team playoffs, I mean, how each program handles it is going to be really interesting. Well, we come back from a quick time out here, live from Arlington, live from Austin. It's Big 12 Championship game day here on the Horn. We're at Jay Gilligan's in downtown Arlington. Patrick is in the Horn headquarters there on the banks of 360. We'll hear Steve Sarkisian. He was asked this week about scheduling tough non-conference games, as Patrick just talked about. Texas plays Michigan next year, in addition to their new SEC schedule, which features the Aggies in Georgia and Florida. And Sark had a pretty candid answer about playing Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State in the non-con. We'll let you hear that. But each coach is going to do it different.
Yes.
And I think Texas, it's arguable Texas they're going to have a lot of turnover this year to year. But, Texas still wants to recruit high school players and build the roster traditionally, and then add portal players where they need to fill some holes. Mike Gundy kind of had to overhaul his roster this offseason because, as Patrick said, they don't do the NIL thing, so a lot of guys left, and I still don't understand why Spencer Sanders transferred to Ole Miss to not play. He could have been the starting quarterback.
That was an NIL grab in your final year, not thinking you're going to be a pro.
Yeah, that's right. Probably so, and he could have been the starter here for Oklahoma State. We'll come back. We'll pick up that conversation here from Sark on that topic of scheduling tough non-conference games as we get this thing going. Also more on Texas and Oklahoma State Big 12 Championship Saturday, live here on the Horn. extended coverage here in Arlington and in Austin Friday afternoon and here this morning. Do want to thank our friend Travis Tyndall and Tamara. Hayes City Store, the destination location in between Kyle and Wimberley. Great place, and also their new location they'd love you to come check out. It's different. It's not the same as Hayes City Store, but it's Taste on Main in charming downtown Buda, Texas, USA, America. It's a little higher end, but still a casual feel, steak and seafood, but on the casual side, East Coast oysters, great bourbon, tequila, and wine selection there. Happy hour 7 nights a week at Taste. Free and easy parking, so you don't have to fight downtown and traffic to go get a great steak and sit in a dark steakhouse somewhere. You can get it right there in downtown Buda. So if you live in South Austin, Circle C, Onion Creek like I do, anywhere, quick trip down to Buda, and you're going to love it. Indoor and outdoor. They have the outdoor treehouse bar, which is outstanding on a beautiful day in the fall here. Evening, watching sports and enjoying a great steak or a burger. Great option right there.
I got to tell you, Hayes City Store is one of my favorite places. I've only been there a couple times. I have a buddy that lives in Wimberley who took me there for the first time. I absolutely love Hayes City Store.
It is can't miss, man.
Yeah. If I lived in that area, I'd be there on Saturdays watching college football if I'm not in DKR.
Yeah, well, you know me. If I'm not doing the in-game watch on Inside Texas or this pregame show, that's kind of where I'm at. Sundays we make a pretty permanent there watching NFL football for sure, because it's a great spot, destination location there between Kyle and Wimberley, right? Great spot from Dripping Springs, and we appreciate it. I saw Travis and Tamara last night. They came out to Terry Black's barbecue and had some barbecue, met Terry Black, and it was good to see them as well. But thank you to our travel partners. Couldn't be here without them. And here is Arlington, Texas, where the Longhorns can set the tone on Championship Saturday, make a statement on Championship Saturday. There are 4 spots for the college football playoff. 1 spot is taken. Congratulations to the Washington Huskies. They delivered in a big way last night as a 10-point underdog. I think everybody heard that line and thought, what? 10-point underdog? I think there was a perception in Vegas and around that game was played in Vegas, but that's where the gambling lines are set, that Michael Penix may not have been healthy. That something was up with him coming off of the narrow win over Washington State in their rivalry game last weekend. But he was certainly really good last night.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, Rod talks about this all the time. And, I kind of took the bait on Oregon. I had a Pac-12 coach that told me, assistant coach, that Oregon was by far the best team they played this year. And, look, I'm about as big a Kalen DeBoer fan as there is. But Rod talks about breaking tendency all the time. And I 100% agree with him. If I told you this, Washington's run 484 pass plays this year and 360 rush plays.
Yeah.
The 2 games they broke tendency and really ran the football was at USC and then last night against Oregon. Dylan Johnson, 28 carries for 150 yards in that game. Great coaches break tendency, right? And when they have to win games. Great coaches also leave what they ideally want to do offensively to go win a football game for the betterment of their team. And Kalen DeBoer, I think, just an unbelievable offensive mind. But what he's done there, when you consider that, he was at Indiana. He was the offensive coordinator for Michael Penix. Then he goes to Fresno. He wins 9 games in year 1, not the COVID year. They only played 6. After that, he won 9 games. Then he goes to Washington and goes 11-2, beats Texas in the Alamo Bowl. Now he's 13-0. That's a hellacious coaching job. I'm sorry. When's the last time Washington's been in this position?
Yeah, 2016 with Chris Peterson, who's a hell of a coach himself.
Yeah.
But you're right, and he's built a program there. And he was the head coach at a place called Sioux Falls.
That's right.
And won a bunch of NAIA national championships. 103-11, his head coaching record. 103-11. He can flat coach, and I love your point about breaking tendency, and we'll talk about that here in our extended coverage from Arlington. Mike Gundy is going to break some tendency today.
Yes.
That's going to be our, the challenge of the Texas coaches, and we'll talk about it, what those tendency breakers will be and what Texas will do to break some tendency in a championship game, or do they have to beat this Oklahoma State team. But I mentioned on the way to the timeout, Patrick, Steve Sarkisian was asked about non-conference scheduling. I think we're all going to be fascinated to watch how individual programs and coaches handle the new landscape of college football with portals, NIL, and then a 12-team playoff. Where, remember, when we get to next year, you won't be worried about 4 spots. You'll be worried about 12 spots. But the way it's going to work starting next year is, by all accounts, they have to officially vote on this, but next year there'll only be 4 power conferences.
Right.
It's Pac-12's gone. Unfortunately, the way that all played out and the politics of it and TV dollars and how it's all, the Pac-12 is dissolving. So there will be 4 power conferences, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 10. They're going to adopt a plan, or at least a system for the 12-team playoff that is a 5-7 model, right? There will be 5 guaranteed spots for conference champions, the 4 power, and then the best non-power 5 teams. So Tulane this year would be in. It was going to be 6 and 6 before the Pac-12 dissolved, but they have changed that and amended that to I think they're going to rubber stamp the 5-7. So the 5 are guaranteed, and then there are 7 at-larges. Essentially, the same college football playoff committee that picks the Final Four will be in place to seed the 12, and then set up the matchups. And so this year, for example, if you use this year, the top 4 teams that make the top 4 will be off week 1 in the 12-team playoff. That is their reward for having a great season, winning their conference, and getting the top 4 spots. They'll be off. The other then 8 teams will play. Right. And the higher seed, so 5 will play 12, 6 will play 11, and on down. And the higher seeded team will play a home game. So, let's say Texas finished 5th this year. This is all set. The dust settles. They would host 2 weeks from today a home game at DKR in a semifinal in a playoff game. 5 against whoever the 12th seeded team is, and then they would play it down from there. Of course, the top 4 teams would get back involved in the next round of the playoff, which is how this thing will play out. But point of that is, you can if you're in one of the Power 4 conferences, Jerry and Patrick, you can schedule tough non-conference games. You cannot schedule tough all you have to do is win your conference.
That's right.
In one of the Power 4s and win that conference championship game, and you're going to be guaranteed a spot somewhere in the top 12. That to me, that's huge incentive, and I'm fascinated how different coaches are going to approach that.
Well, look, I know we're going to get to what Sark says, and I don't know where Patrick you come out on this, but here's my thought, because there's a lot of the talk leading up to the last couple of weeks was, well, if Texas doesn't get in to the top 4, why would you go play at Michigan or play Ohio State? What's the incentive? Why does it make sense to go do that anymore? So, look, here's what I have to say to that. I think there's going to end up being more incentive because a 3-loss team can get in the playoff, right? So the coaches, these games are great for college football. They're great for recruiting. These are what you attracts kids to these blue blood programs going to play at Michigan playing at Texas, Ohio State. Think about the mileage Texas got out of playing Ohio State. But here's the thing. I love scheduling a game like that in the future because of the 12-team playoff. You can have 3 losses and get in even if you're the 12th seed. And who knows what happens after that. I don't think you're going to see these blue bloods shy away from playing each other non-conference. I actually think you could see one game being more attractive in the future of these colleges.
I think you're right about that, and you can certainly weigh in on our text line, 512-447-3776. I want your thought, Patrick, on that same topic moving forward. Obviously, we're focused on today, but at the same time, next year, it's a whole new landscape. Let's hear Sark talking about – he was asked about it because a lot of Longhorn fans have texted us, and I know on Inside Texas, Jerry, have said if they don't get in, screw the Michigan game next year. They should immediately cancel it. Sark was asked. Here's what he said on Thursday.
I don't look at it like that. I look at those games as, man, what a great opportunity for our players. We try to recruit great competitors here. They want to play in big time games. They want to play in big time environments. Naturally, we have our normal conference schedules as we go, and we're clearly making the transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. But for our players, knowing that, hey, in the next 4 years, they're playing Michigan and Ohio State at home and on the road, I think our players are excited about that. And hopefully we can continue to recreate what we've been able to do is put together a quality team that can go play on the road in any environment. And I think when you do that early in the season, that gives you confidence for games later in the season that are needed when you need those tough wins on the road. So, hey, I'm not here to, I don't know what's going to happen with the CFP. But what I do know is, man, we got a lot of value in going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama this year and winning that game. And I think that's helped us put ourselves in position to win a Big 12 championship Saturday.
All right, there's Sark's thoughts on this Saturday morning. That was on Thursday. Patrick, where are you on this? Scheduling tough non-cons in September where you can, as Jerry says, lose a couple, 2-3 games in the future, and still, if you can come back and win the conference or be an at-large, you can still make the tournament at the end.
I mean, if you just look at this year, for example, if we didn't play Alabama and beat Alabama, we're number 12 in the country right now? Like that Oklahoma loss,
probably.
we're behind Oklahoma. So we're, 12, 13? If we don't play that game and we're 11-1, because we'd still be 11-1 if we played whatever small Power 5, we'd be like 12 or 13. So it doesn't, it knocks you down. And if we would have lost to Alabama and beat Oklahoma, we'd still be in the same spot, and we'd probably be 8 right now. So if you just want to look at simple of this season as an example, playing Alabama, even if we lost, made our schedule better because it would have said, all right, well, those guys, if they're one-loss team, they lost to Alabama. Well, Alabama's a really good team, and they went undefeated in their conference. They're good to go. Or you beat Alabama, and you get that win, and now you're number 7, and Alabama can't jump you, even if the SEC and Paul Feinbaum want to cry about it all they want. So there's nothing you can do, but, this is a big deal. This is why you go to Texas. This is the thing, is that teams want to play Texas because the same reason we want to play them is because you're the best. And we can look at Oklahoma State and go, well, they didn't have to schedule anybody, but they lost to South Alabama. Do you want to have a shot to lose to someone terrible, or do you want to go ahead and beat compete against a really good team? I think it's just a wimp's way out if you don't want to go play these games.
I agree with that, and I think I love what Sark said. I mean, our players want to play in those games. We can recruit to that. Our fans want to go see a game in Ann Arbor and Columbus and Tuscaloosa. The fan base loves it. And there's really not a downside when you have 12 spots and there's the automatic bid for a conference champion.
No, and to Sark's point, that was a recruiting pitch right there for people, right, and for kids. Kids want to come to the University of Texas. They go to Michigan. They go to Ohio State. They go to play against the best. They want to play in those games. These kids, look, why is Texas moving to the SEC? Why is that so helpful in recruiting? These kids have grown up watching the SEC dominate college football, right? So what do kids think about? They turn the TV on and they watch Michigan, Ohio State, right? I mean, think about how many viewers watched Alabama and Texas this year. Think about how many high school kids and their families watch Texas and Alabama this year. Think about how many families are going to watch Texas, Michigan next year that are prospective recruits for the University of Texas. That is a win-win-win situation for Steve Sarkisian moving forward, especially since they beat Bama on the road this year. If they finish this thing off today, headed into the SEC and playing Michigan, Steve Sarkisian can walk in, and the coaching staff can walk into any house in America that they want to recruit a kid and say, we're going to play against the best. We're one of the best. We're going to prepare you. We're going to develop you. We're going to get you ready for the NFL, and we're going to put you on the biggest stage. We're moving to the SEC, but you know what? Even though we're moving to the SEC, we're still playing Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah, in the non-conference.
That's a hell of a recruiting pitch.
And
Sure is.
Which other coach in the country can say we're playing the number 1 and number 2 team in the country next year?
Yeah,
They're number 1 and number
exactly
2
right
right now. We're playing both of them next year. Which other coach? No other coach can say it.
Right.
And to Jerry's point, and to dovetail back to the demise of the Pac-12, think about why the Pac-12, bad leadership led to the demise of the Pac-12. But also all the best players from California and the West Coast were leaving to go play in the SEC.
In SEC.
Because of what you were saying. They were watching Clemson and Alabama and LSU dominate. So C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and Bijan Robinson from Arizona, all the best players wanted to go play there. They wanted to go play in those big games. They didn't want to play in the Pac-12 where they're playing at 9 o'clock at night on the East Coast and no one's paying attention to their games. That became the apathy of the conference, led to where they are now, because kids are going to go where the games are.
That's right.
Kids want to play against the best and be showcased so that they go play at the next level. That's a pretty simple concept. I love that Sark is going to embrace it. I know fans wanted to bail out. I'm not for it. I'm for big-time games. I think there's no reason. We'll come back. We'll pick that conversation up. It's a good one. Also, Oklahoma State, how they have transformed from a 2-2 team into a 9-3 team playing for a Big 12 title, and what the Longhorns have to do to beat them. We are live in Arlington. Jay Gilligan's
is packed. It's about SRO already and we're at 8:47 in the morning.
Why not, man? Where else would you rather be if you're headed over to the game? Get yourself some drinks, get yourself some food. They're going to have a buffet going, I believe, and get your belly full and get pre-gamed and lubed up and ready to go. Take the shuttle right over to the stadium and back. It is a great opportunity right here in downtown Arlington. Jay Gilligan's a tradition since 1979 right here on Abrams Street in downtown Arlington, Texas, 1 mile from AT&T Stadium. Here on the Horn, coming back, we've got pregame coverage all the way to 11 o'clock. And so go nowhere on 101.9 AM 1260. Stream it on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Indeed, we're coming to you live from Jay Gilligan's in Arlington, mile from AT&T Stadium, the scene of today's Big 12 championship game, the Longhorns' final game as a member of the Big 12 Conference. Whatever happens today, that'll be it. And the hope is that Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the conference, hands a trophy to Steve Sarkisian, and that'll be it. Bookend championships for Texas. They won the first one, would like to win their last one on their way to the Southeastern Conference, and good conversations being had. This place is filling up fast, as Jerry Hamilton mentioned. It's a perfect spot to get ready for this game. Man, if I ever come to another event at AT&T Stadium, a Cowboys game, a concert, I'm coming to Jay Gilligan's.
No doubt about it. This is a great location.
So close.
Yeah, just a huge bar. I mean, so they can fit so many people in here. I was shocked when I got here. I think it was 7:03. I pulled up. There were already 15, 20 people waiting in line. But they can hold a lot of people here. They have great service. I say a lot of happy customers here.
Well,
Jay Gilligan's a place to be.
Well, and I'll say this: it's not like an Arlington City shuttle. It's actually Jay Gilligan's shuttle. They've invested in vans,
Right.
and they've got drivers that it's a constant shuttle. I mean, that takes you to and from the stadium. And so, obviously, your car you park here in Arlington downtown, and don't have to mess with the parking lots and in and out, and relax on your way over. It's a really cool way to take in an event at one of the premier stadiums in the world, right there at AT&T Stadium here at Jay Gilligan's. We were talking about the big picture of college football, also this game. This will be a shorter segment, but let me mention, Jerry, because you are the senior recruiting analyst at On3 Sports and Inside Texas, and we appreciate your partnership on this conversation this morning with myself and Patrick, and the conversation about this game. But congratulations to Liberty Hill and Wimberley. I mentioned Wimberley not far from Hayes City Store, one of our travel partners. Those two teams clinched spots in their respective state semifinals last night with wins. Liberty Hill took down San Antonio Piper 28-14 at Bobcat Stadium in San Marcos. The Texans of Wimberley went down to Von Ormy and pounded Sinton 38-13. Wimberley's got a really good team this year. So Wimberley's now going to face Belleville in the 4A Division II semifinals next week. Liberty Hill will take on Port Neches Groves in the 5A Division II semifinals, which will be a hell of a game.
And that's Port Neches Groves head coach is the son of Gary Joseph, the legendary Katy head coach. He's in his second year at Port Neches. Went to the state championship last year in season 1 and looked like they have a chance once again. But I'll tell you what, hey, Aaron, there was a big upset in Texas high school football last night. Carthage lost. Scott Surratt, who has won 9 state championships, lost last night to Gilmer 47-44. And that's a big upset because Scott Surratt, I believe, is the best high school coach in the state of Texas.
Really?
And if he had won state this year, he starts his son as a sophomore quarterback and a sophomore running back who's already been offered by Texas. If they had won the state championship this year, I think he was going to run off 3 in a row and end his high school coaching career 12 state titles. So Gilmer nipped him 47-44. The week after, Carthage beat an undefeated Pleasant Grove team, which looked like that was their toughest game on the way to a state championship. So one upset up in East Texas last night.
That's awesome. And today, in addition to this game, there's a couple of big games in the area. Lake Travis and Westlake will play their regional final game. The minute the schedule came out, you could see this collision course coming.
Yes.
Once Lake Travis got past Vandergrift, Westlake got out of the region round. This was coming, and they're going to play today in Pflugerville at the Field in Pflugerville at 2 o'clock today. Of course, they're the Battle of the Lakes, the West Austin rivals as they are. No love lost between the two. They're going to play
that had to put a lot of Big 12 championship game tickets on StubHub, right, for people to buy.
Yeah,
I mean that took away a few hundred fans, right, for today.
Well, think how many Westlake Chaparrals will be playing in this game for Texas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Ethan Burke and Michael Taff and Colton Bostic's on his way.
Connor
Robertson, the backup center. I mean, a lot of Chaps playing. Lake Travis, well represented. That's a heck of a game. Also, Dripping Springs will be in the Alamo Dome. Good luck to the Drip and the Tigers. They're going to play Cibolo Steel in the 6A Division II regional final tonight at 7 o'clock down in San Antonio. So a couple area teams there playing to get to the Final Four and obviously playing to get here to play at AT&T Stadium on Championship Saturday.
The question,
or week.
Can Westlake claim Arch Manning since his two best buddies at Texas are Michael Taff and Connor Robertson?
Kind of.
They can claim him, right, at this point?
It kind of feels like it, and that was a big part of it. I mean, Michael Taff wears number 16,
Yep.
Not just for Arch Manning, but he wears it for a fallen teammate of his at Westlake who was killed in a car accident. But it's a kind of a tribute situation. But, yeah, Michael Taff and Arch Manning are best of buddies.
I can say this now because it's all in the past. But Arch Manning, there was some slight consideration if he was going to go to Texas, that the family was going to move to Austin and he plays senior year at Westlake. Obviously, it didn't end up happening. I don't think Archie Manning wanted that. He wanted that family is very important. Isidore Newman is part of their family, but there was small consideration
Wow.
to that.
That's interesting. And that's, Michael Taft gets a lot of credit. Connor Robertson, and that's why I think for Longhorn fans, Patrick, who think Arch Manning's going to transfer and move out of here, and if he doesn't get guaranteed a starting job or whatnot next year, I think that's he likes Austin. I love this about the Manning family, and you can speak to it better than anybody, Jerry and Patrick. We're a family like Quinn Ewers. They've had their eyes on the NFL for a long time, and the fast track to the NFL, and then the opportunity. the Mannings, in their perspective, having been through it with Archie and with Peyton and Eli, they're slow tracking it.
Yes.
They want him to enjoy college. They want him to enjoy the experience. They know that the NFL will always be there.
Yes.
And if you're good enough to get there, they'll find you. Enjoy your college experience, just like they let him enjoy his high school experience. And, his recruitment was unlike any other five-star big-name quarterback we've seen.
Well, it goes back to, Isidore Newman, right? That is a big part of the developmental process there. Isidore Newman, one thing with Arch is, that is, Arch didn't play on the most talented high school team, right? He didn't go that's why
IMG Academy or something.
Right, yeah. He could have gone anywhere, right? And they considered the move to Austin, obviously. But, look, at the end of the day, that Isidore Newman path was a path towards his development that the Manning family saw be so successful with Peyton, so successful with Eli, and then Arch came through that same school. None of those guys won a state championship, by the way.
No.
And you know what?
Arch won one in basketball, right?
Arch won one in basketball. Those guys won multiple Super Bowls, right? But so they're on the slow path to development. This is not a sprint for them. This is a marathon to get Arch to the best place he can be when that day it comes to be an NFL quarterback. And that's the way they've always looked at this. Look, Peyton was going to redshirt until there was an injury at Tennessee, the first game of the year. Eli did redshirt and didn't begin year 2 as the starter.
Right. Yeah.
So the family is patient with this process. They understand how important development is at the quarterback position and how that's not a sprint. If you try to sprint that, then oftentimes you fail.
Yeah. Well said. As usual with Jerry Hamilton. That's good stuff right there. All right, Patrick, we'll pick this up on the other side. We will talk about the actual starting quarterback for Texas today. That's Quinn Ewers and what kind of game he can have today. Last year in Stillwater, obviously kind of a nightmare game for Quinn. We'll talk about the bounce back and the opportunity here to clinch a championship for the first time. First Texas quarterback since Colt McCoy to clinch a conference championship on the line. We'll talk Quinn. We'll talk with you. We're live in Arlington. Jay Gilligan's. You're live with us on the Horn. Patrick's on the banks of 360 there in West Austin. We're cranking it up. It's 1 hour down, 2 more to go, all the way to kickoff on our pregame coverage, the Big 12 championship game here on the Horn. All right, we are 2 hours out to kick off of the Big 12 Championship game 20 and 23, and Jay Gilligan's in Arlington is hopping. We're about to get some Texas fight chants going. The Longhorns have arrived at AT&T Stadium. Buses have pulled in. The Longhorns are there. Tavondre Sweat has rolled in, listening to his Luke Combs, and got his hat on. Steve Sarkisian's got the burnt orange blazer. Longhorns are ready for championship Saturday, and to make a statement and set the tone for what's to come the rest of the day. Leave no doubt, I think, would be the argument for the Longhorns here. Oklahoma State has other ideas, obviously. They'd like to play upset and give the Longhorns a loss in their final Big 12 game, not let Brett Yormark hand that trophy to Texas on their way out of the Big 12 Conference. A lot of subplots here and a lot of conversations. I am Aaron Hogan. Jerry Hamilton, kind enough to join us and partner with us on this from inside Texas. Yesterday at Terry Black's Barbecue, and here today, Patrick Davis is in the Horn headquarters. Ty Henderson is supposed to drop by. We'll see if we can get him to roll in too. Rod Babers will join Patrick next hour with a phone conversation. Of course, Rod has been dealing with the COVID protocols this week, so he's not able to join us, but he will be giving his opinion coming up in about 1 hour. Also, before we're done at 11 o'clock with our pregame coverage from Arlington and from Austin, Sam Mays, the All-American, former All-American linebacker of Oklahoma State, who has some great perspective on this Oklahoma State team and how they've gone from a 2-2 lousy-looking football team to win 7 of 8 games and here playing for the conference championship with Mike Gundy. We are at Jay Gilligan's. As we told you, they got a shuttle. They've got fun. People are cranking this thing up. We're brought to you by Hayes City Store and Ice House, Taste on Main, and One Source Gas. Central Texas, our great friend Richard and his team helping us get up here and bring you this live coverage. Lead story on ESPN.com this morning, Jerry and Patrick, is Quinn Ewers and the Quinn Ewers conversation. The headline of the story is it's a Pete Thamel report. Sources, Quinn Ewers' return to Texas becoming more likely. So not a surprise to us here, but this is a national, worldwide story at ESPN. But the lead of the story is the likelihood of star quarterback Quinn Ewers returning to Texas and playing a 4th season of college football has increased exponentially in the past few weeks. The 20-year-old is making the 21st start of his college career on Saturday in the Big 12 title game. Sources told ESPN and Pete Thamel that the feeling in his camp is increasing that another year of development would be best positioned for him for a long-term success in the NFL.
Yes, Bobby Burton reported a couple weeks ago on Texas Football Inside Texas, that on Texas Football YouTube channel. Check that out, obviously. That Quinn Ewers was 90% chance he was going to return.
Yeah, you guys were way ahead of this.
We were way ahead, and we haven't heard anything that makes us back off of that. So I think with that ESPN report, it falls right in line with what we've been hearing. That we think the Ewers camp fully understands that this is not a sprint, that this needs to be a marathon, as we talked about with Arch Manning, and the likelihood is 90. And we're sticking with that 90% chance at least that Quinn returned to Texas next year.
And Patrick, we were having the conversation before the top of the hour about Arch Manning, and his family slow playing his college experience and wants him to enjoy college and enjoy Austin, Texas, and his friends. And it's a perspective that I can share because that was always my message to my kids. My kids weren't 5-star athletes, but stop and smell the roses. Don't race to adulthood. Once you're an adult, you're an adult. And whether you're making millions in the NFL or not, the NFL is a grind.
Yes.
The NFL is a business. It's not as fun as college and high school. Talk to any professional NFL player what was your funnest time of your career? Oh, when I was playing with my guys.
Yeah, Ricky Williams says it to this day. Yeah. Anytime you interview him.
Because in high school you're playing with your buddies you grew up with. Yeah. And in college you get to choose where you go, right? So you come in with one recruiting class, and that's kind of changing now with portal and whatnot, but you still come in with a group of guys and you go to battle with them. And when you get to the NFL, it's a business. Right. And obviously college football is becoming more transactional and more of a business, but at its heart, it's still you chose that school, that's where you're going. And, the NFL's different. And I think the Manning family, more than any, understand that. And maybe Quinn Ewers is realizing that, talking to Arch Manning all the time. And, this is a good situation for Texas because, the fact that most people, including you and me, Jerry, believe that when this season began that Quinn Ewers, there's very little chance he'll be back next year.
Correct.
The fact that it's now 90%, according to Inside Texas, ESPN's now on the story nationally, that, you're going to be going into the Patrick to the SEC with a third-year starting quarterback. That's better. I don't care if his name's Arch Manning or whatnot. That's a far better opportunity than going into the SEC with a unproven, never started a game starting quarterback.
And
Fair
I mean,
to say?
and if you want to look at the bridge where we know most of your receivers that are catching balls this year are probably gone, and that bridge to the next group of wide receivers, if you say Quinn can make that jump instead of the entire offense is different next season, and you have Quinn, and then, hopefully Jonathan Brooks gets healthy by the middle of the season, and you add him back into a backfield where C.J. Baxter is going to be playing well, and if you add all that together, that you're looking at the SEC part of your season next year being pretty good, where Quinn can get those guys up to speed a little bit quicker, a leadership perspective to kind of bridge that gap where so many of your leaders and so many guys that have been around this team are going to be moving on next season. That I think, it would be a huge coup for Texas to not have to rush into the Arch Manning era.
Well, and consider, Jerry and Patrick, the year-to-year development from last year to this for Quinn Ewers.
Yes.
I mean,
huge.
Light years, right? And the mullet's gone. He's in better shape. He's more athletic. He looks more comfortable.
Completed 73.6% of his passes in Big 12 play. Not to go boo Corrigan, but 73.6 is a big number and a big improvement from a year ago.
Right, and he's still an NFL player, prospect, big picture. Who knows how high level? But it's amazing to me when I hear from Texas fans who hear this news and like, oh no, because they think Arch Manning's going to bolt, or Malik. This may cost you Malik Murphy, right? Malik Murphy's probably going to transfer.
Correct.
Whether it's soon or later, I think Malik Murphy will be elsewhere, and you give him a lot of credit for being here this year to help you win 2 games that helped get you into this spot. But it's a good problem to have. And to what Patrick said, Jerry, you're the recruiting expert. Steve Sarkisian, if he knows Quinn Ewers is coming back, that helps you in the portal.
Yes.
That helps you recruit guys like Evan Stewart, potentially, possible receivers in high school. You're going to be catching balls from Quinn Ewers next year, and then Arch Manning beyond that. And think about walking into Ann Arbor next year in Michigan with Quinn Ewers, an established, started at that point 22, 23 games. That's a good situation to have.
No, it's a great situation to have, and I do think that Malik Murphy will make that move right to the portal. So, I mean, you would go in with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning next year. Look, and Quinn hasn't had a fully healthy season in college. That's a
exactly
reality.
Right.
I mean, he
even in high school.
Even in high school, late in his high school career. So, they're going to be Arch Manning, what Texas fans saw him, a college coach called him slick to me. I thought that was a pretty good term for the way he plays in the pocket. But that athleticism that Arch has. But I think the Texas quarterback room in that scenario is absolutely loaded for the future. I mean, you have Trey Owens, who would be a true freshman as well. Then you'd have KJ Lacey coming in 2025. But I think if you win in the next season with Quinn Ewers as QB1 and Arch Manning as QB2 with a year of learning and getting accustomed to college football under his belt, you'd have to name me a better quarterback room than that to start a season next year.
Agreed, and you'd be playing behind, you're going to see a lot of change on defense where, the guts of your defense are going to be moving on. We know that this is likely the final game, at least in the regular season or the championship scenario, for Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy.
Yes.
Jalen Ford, Ryan Watts. I mean, really, really good players. They've got players in the pipeline, but your proven commodities are going to be moving on from your defense. Offensive line is going to lose Christian Jones at right tackle, and everyone else is back.
Everybody else is back, including and then we'll see if a couple of the younger guys maybe hit the portal, because, I mean, there is a log jam there at a couple of positions. But, look, I mean, Cam Williams will step in the right tackle. We'll see if the 5-star freshman Brandon Baker can come in and push or challenge.
He's from California,
from
modern
day, right? But Texas has so many offensive linemen back, coming back next year. Such good depth. And this is that 2022. That offensive line class is now going to be all grown up next year. Kelvin Banks in his final 3rd year of college. Cam Williams, Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, 2nd year starting, right? I think there's a good chance Jake Majors comes back next year. So, I mean, that offensive line is going to be a strength of the team next year. I think Texas is going to do very well at wide receiver in the portal. I think they will add an addition at tight end, a downfield threat in the portal if JT Sanders goes pro as expected. I think on defense, the portal is going to be very kind to Texas at 2 or 3 positions. They'll be looking punter as well in the portal. But I think things really line up for Texas. And I know we're concerned about the 11 a.m. this game right now. But I think the way Sark's recruiting, they're number 7 ranked recruiting class right now, Aaron. Kobe Black announces December 13th. I like Texas' chances. They have a shot to flip the 5-star safety Xavier Filsaime, committed to Florida right now. Texas has a chance for a third straight top 5 class. Even if they finish 6 or 7, that's stacking classes on top of classes. And when you're a blue blood, you win in the portal if you're winning on the field. And you look at a guy like A.D. Mitchell, he comes here for 1 year, he enters the draft, and he's going to be a late first, second round type of draft pick. That helps you in the portal. Guys have transferred. Ryan Sandborn transfers in, and he has a great year punting the football at Texas. People didn't know Ryan Sandborn's name at Stanford. And they know his name a little bit now if you follow Texas football. So the portal's been very good to Texas. High school recruiting's going great for Texas right now. This thing is set up not for a one-hit wonder type of season, but for sustained success, which you have to have headed east into the SEC.
Yeah, well, we know the last time the Longhorns were in this game, Patrick, 09. It collapsed afterwards after that. And then 18, Tom Herman wasn't able to build on it. John Makovic, back in the mid-90s, not able to build on it. The hope is Steve Sarkisian is building something reliable and built to last, and I think Jerry Hamill just laid it out for you where it's headed. Patrick, your thoughts on the Quinn Ewers story that coming back, is there any way to paint that as a bad thing for Texas?
No, I mean, when you saw his progression from last year to this year, and, I think that we saw with Quinn last year, what was so frustrating was that it takes time for him to learn. He needs to kind of step away and process. So a lot of the stuff he's probably learning this year will take a little bit of time for him to get into, but it's just his maturity level of growth that, Sark talked about it on Monday, that basically last year, if he missed a pass, that missed pass or that drop pass turned into missed passes and he was misthrowing the ball, and those missed throws turned into interceptions, and it just kept going downhill. And this year he can throw a pick and then throw 5 straight completions afterwards, which was not the Quinn Ewers of last year. So you want to see that progression into next year. I also do want to report some breaking news that apparently Sark has now said Ryan Watts is out for the game today.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Ryan Watts out, of course, suffered that back injury early on last week against Texas Tech. That means Manny Muhammad from Dallas South Oak Cliff, who played on this field last 2 years in the state championship game for SOC, will likely get a start with Terrence Brooks, the future at corner. We'll talk about how big of a loss that could be. We'll hear Sark coming back talking about exactly what Patrick just said about Quinn Ewers and his maturity. And look, you can understand the NFL saying, look, man, we've seen your year-to-year development. We'd like to see one more. We'd like to see you with 35 starts under your belt. What does that look like? Because, this is a deep quarterback class for the NFL in April. Next year will not be as deep. If Quinn Ewers leads Texas to a Big 12 championship this year, builds on it, comes back next year, he could be the number 1 pick next year.
Look at the history of third-year starting quarterbacks in college football and blue blood programs. Those returns have been really good.
You're right. We'll be back. Pick it up. We'll hear from Sark. We're getting ready, man. We're going to get some Texas fight chants going. People are getting geeked up. They're getting lubed up. It is pregame at Jay Gilligan's in downtown Arlington, Texas, 1 mile from AT&T Stadium here on the Horn. are getting ready to go. A little rowdy. We're inside 2 hours to kick off Texas and Oklahoma State in the Big 12 Championship. Great crowd, and we're just in the one of the main bar areas here at Jay Gilligan's. They've got an outdoor tented area. Man, if you're up here, if you're not here now, come after. Watch the SEC Championship game. Watch Championship Saturday at Jay Gilligan's. They got plenty of space, plenty of fun, plenty of cold beverages, and the pitchers are flowing.
Here's the question, Aaron, Patrick. Will Texas fans be more nervous before the Texas-Oklahoma State game? Or with a win, will you be more nervous watching Louisville and FSU tonight?
Yeah. Oh,
That's
man.
the question for Texas fans.
We'll all be really nervous going into the second half. I think going into the second half is going to be peak nervousness.
But look, I mean, you don't want to. I'm looking at one of those neon signs they're all over the place here at the bar at Jay Gilligan's. Screwball. Texas doesn't want to screw this up.
No.
Right? I mean, the opportunity's in front of them. They can't guarantee anything, but what they can do is control this. And I love the way you put it yesterday at Terry Black's with us. Set the tone.
Set
the tone for Championship Saturday. I thought Washington made a statement last night that they were underappreciated, and they've solidified their spot. They're in the Final Four. They'll represent the Pac-12. You're leaving the Big 12, but you're representing Texas right now.
Yes.
And you can put yourself in a really good position with a strong performance tonight, or this morning, kicking off at 11 o'clock. Steve Sarkisian did just say that Ryan Watts is out today. We mentioned that, and thank you to Patrick for breaking that. Said that on LHM this morning. So Ryan Watts will be out. We'll talk more about Oklahoma State. We mentioned Rod Babers will weigh in with his thoughts in the 10 o'clock hour, and the other side, get the north of the Red River conversation with Sam Mays, who does as good a job as anybody of breaking down Oklahoma State and that team, and Mike Gundy and how they turn this thing around. But to finish up our conversation about Quinn Ewers, can we hear Steve Sarkisian? He was asked on Monday because, I mean, this is talk about keeping receipts, Jerry, and
yes,
the revenge tour and leaving, forever bragging rights with your rivals. This is not just a game for Texas against Oklahoma State. This is a game for Quinn Ewers. He played a terrible game in Stillwater last year. Longhorns lost the game. He knows that. He was inaccurate. It was a windy day. It was kind of a weird day. He might have had a bit of a thumb problem going on. But to Patrick's point that, when things started to spiral last year for Quinn, he couldn't pull out of it,
Right.
And it would lead to a bad game. A couple bad plays would lead to a bad game. Here's Sark from the quarterback and the head coach perspective of the development of Quinn year to year from Oklahoma State last year to what he expects to see today.
Well, that's part of the games like that are part of the growing pains of playing the position. When you get on the road and you get in a hostile environment, and early on things are going your way, and then things start not going your way for a variety of reasons. In that game, we had a couple opportunities for some big plays, and we didn't pass protect very well for him. Then we had a couple opportunities for some big plays. We didn't catch the ball very well for him. And then all of a sudden he misses a couple throws, and those types of things can snowball on you. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and I think Quinn has learned, and that I've learned about him, is his demeanor when things at times this year haven't gone great. For example, the interception Friday night when he was trying to hit the fade to A.D. Mitchell, I thought his poise, his composure really showed through, and he was able to come right back and still execute at a high level. A year ago, it might have been more of a challenge to rebound from that type of a play, but I think that he's learning how to respond to those things, to learn from them, and then put them to the side, and then focus on the next task, the next play, and what's asked of him. So I think there's a mental maturity side from him that you're just seeing a lot of growth, a lot of maturity.
He'll need it today. He's been really good, especially in the second half of conference games since he's gotten healthy. And Jerry, you've covered Quinn Ewers and his path since he's a sophomore in high school, even probably before that. What's your take on how he's evolved and matured at 20 years old now?
Yeah, I think leaving high school a year early to go to Ohio State, that set back his development, not just as a quarterback, but as a leader.
Yep.
I had a college offensive coordinator say people will always underestimate how big of a deal that was that Quinn missed that year. He wasn't just been the leader of the South Lake team. He's the leader of the community, the high school, all of it with the expectations that would have been on South Lake Carroll. That's a different deal than just being a leader of a small-town high school football team, right? That's a community that's won state championships. They would have had high state championship expectations. That that he missed a big year to lead and really truly lead for the first time. So that set him back from a leadership standpoint. Then he goes and sits up at Ohio State, hands the ball off, doesn't do a lot, right? I mean, when you're a scout team quarterback. Then he comes into Texas, and it's a competition, and I'm using air quotes here because Quinn was going to be the starting quarterback. But anytime you're in a competition, you're not coming into a leadership position.
No,
you're just not. So last year was a transition year, and the crazy thing, I'm sure you and Rod have talked about this. Last year was the first time Steve Sarkisian had started a freshman quarterback as a coach. He's always had a more experienced quarterback. So you put all these things together with Quinn, and then he missed time last year, obviously with the injury. Sark's second year in the system, which is not an easy system. There's a lot that goes into it, and he had a young offensive line in front of him last year. So you take all of these things and you piece all this together, and that's the improvement you've seen in year 2 from him. And if you think, okay, he comes back, what are you going to see in year 3? It's going to be a stronger body. Now that he's reshaped his body, you add that strength to him. But the one thing I'll say about Quinn's a tough kid, man. I think last year some people were questioning his toughness. Why is he sitting out so long? What's truly the injury? But I'm telling you, his junior year at South Lake Carroll, he tried to play through a hernia. He ended up having to have surgery. He comes back. He cracks a rib in the state championship game, stays in the game when they lost to Westlake. Quinn's a tough guy. You think about when he got hurt this year. He was trying to make a first down for his team. People say he's got to learn to slide. He couldn't slide in that situation. He's trying to get a first down for his team. The fumble he had in the Oklahoma game, that was a third down run. He is a tough guy, and I think you're going to see a big move from him in year 2 to year 3.
I agree. That's Jerry Hamilton from Inside Texas. Great insight there. Agree with you. And if you Patrick, translate that forward, think about, not only will you be coming back with a veteran quarterback next year, when Quinn comes back, he can evolve as the leader of the team.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it was Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson last year. This year, it's Sweat and Murphy and Jalen Ford and these guys. I love your point about what he missed at South Lake Carroll. I mean, to be the senior quarterback of a team trying to win a state title and rally the team. He didn't get to do that. He got to go have an internship behind C.J. Stroud in Columbus. Yes. And he probably learned a lot about football, but he didn't get to play and lead. I love the way you said that because and the number one thing this program is going to need next year is a real leader.
That's right.
Is someone to lead it into this SEC, lead it into. And I think having been around Bijan and Roshan and now been around these great leaders that Sark has talked about, the culture, it's his turn to step into that leadership role and lead the Texas program. And it starts today. It starts today with this game right here. Patrick, your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, if we just look at, his improvements and being able to focus in games and, and the running aspect that he added this season where he realized, hey, well, this is, Sark wants me to sit in the pocket, but I went back and watched what Casey Thompson did and what Hudson Card did that worked. Oh, and I can see that I can get out to the outside and I can get some runs. And, okay, now I'm getting positive yardage. Those progressions, he did all that. The footwork last year and everything we saw, we know he was working on it in season. It made it worse. I think that break where he gets to sit back and step away from football for a couple weeks is going to be huge for Quinn. And I mean, just when you look at 3 years of playing is not that long. It takes a lot of guys in the NFL 3-4 years before they get to being at a really top level. I think it will be a huge thing for Texas, and the leadership is just unspoken. Like, that's a huge factor.
And you think about progression from the last year to this year. I think the progression you would see next year on the field, though everybody talks about the progressions, but it starts with your feet. I think you're going to see a guy that has quicker feet, more decisive feet next year in the pocket. And that's going to be huge because without the feet becoming more decisive, the rest can't follow. It doesn't matter what your eyes see. It matters what your feet do. They direct you. And I think that's going to be the next big step in his development as a quarterback.
I'll add in, too, something that you talk to a lot of ex-players about is how long it takes them to learn how to watch film and to really watch it. And I think that's another thing Quinn can continue to improve on is working with other guys going, oh, I get what you're looking for now. That's another piece that you add in that helps him pick apart defenses even better than he is right now.
That's the lead story at ESPN.com. It was a story that Jerry Hamilton and Bobby Burton and the team at Inside Texas broke weeks ago that Quinn Ewers likely to return. They're cranking up the music, so we hope it's not too loud here at Jay Gilligan's, getting people fired up. We'll come back, pick up those conversations. I would say this to your feet comment. If you haven't watched, you should be watching C.J. Stroud of the Texans.
Yes.
Watch his feet. If you want to know why he's so accurate and why he's so good, look how wide his feet are, the little movement with his feet. His feet are, for a rookie quarterback, some of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And that's where his accuracy comes from. The quick release comes off that solid foundation. Watch C.J. Stroud and watch his feet, and you'll see what you're talking about with where Quinn needs to get to. We'll come back. We'll pick it up. We'll also reset, if you're just joining us, what that means for Arch Manning potentially. And obviously we'll talk about this game,
Yes.
this game right here, Texas and Oak State, because Quinn Ewers may have a chance to lead Texas to a Big 12 championship and then maybe into a Final Four conversation. We're talking about it with you on the pregame show. It's the Big 12 championship live from Arlington on the Horn. $41-20 in this game, I believe, is your final. I'm kind of along those lines. I think Vegas is pretty good at what they do. Set aside last night's Oregon 10-point line, but teams outperform the odds makers quite a bit. But in this game, it's a 14-point line for Texas, up to 15 now. The over-under is 55.
Yep.
And that's where I'm looking 35-20. You're on 41-20.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's kind of right where we're going to see this game. I think Oklahoma's going to try to shorten the game, Oklahoma State.
Yes.
And, try to – when you said earlier about breaking tendency, that's what Washington did last night. They're a predominantly pass-heavy team.
Yep.
And against Oregon, they ran the ball a lot last night, broke a tendency, and built that early lead and were able to hold on and beat Oregon. Where do you see Texas, where do you see Oklahoma State trying to break tendency against this really good Texas front?
So I think the big key for Oklahoma State is – I think that the key is for Gundy early is being okay with 1 and 2 yard runs to stay ahead of the chains, right? I think he needs to I think Gundy really has to set up his screen game, and they do a lot of screen game with the running back. They don't do as much in the tunnel screen game, but I think you're going to see Gundy attacking the screen game against this Texas defensive line and this pass rush more so than he has all season. I think that's going to be a big tendency break for him because I think he needs to get some early. He's got to get early, easy completions for Bowman. But the main thing he's got to do is Gundy's got to be okay with 1 and 2 yard runs to stay ahead of the chains. And that's going to give him the ability to break some tendency. I thought it was really good last week that Texas had a fake punt run against them, and they got lucky because of penalty. But Tech saw something on tape against Texas, right? It's better that happened last week. I think you're going to see Gundy come with a fake today, maybe an onside kick. I mean, he's got to bring it all out because he knows he's overwhelmed by talent. So I think the big tendency break is going to be different things in the screen game that Texas hasn't seen this season.
Agree with you. Patrick, I would also say to that point, because I agree with Jerry that's going to come, and he'd like to shorten this game.
Yes.
That's why an efficient, quick start for Texas's offense,
Yes.
if they come out in rhythm, Patrick, that can take them out of what they want to do. They do want to shorten this game. All of a sudden, Texas comes out, goes up and down the field a couple of times and puts the ball in the end zone. Well, then you got to break that and really get out of what you want to do. Texas with a quick start could be really, really big today.
It is, and I hate to drive home the point, but, if you get down and you struggle in the red zone, just kick the field goal. Just kick the field goal in this game. Don't ever let them get the field position. Don't let them get the moral victory and the momentum shift in this game, because once you do that, if you go 3 and then you go 7, it's 10-0 all of a sudden, and then it's 17-0, and then it's 20-0.
Look at last night's game.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's those momentum swings that Texas had so many early in the season. You want to get rid of those. I mean, if it's a 4th and short and you think you can get it and you're pushing down, it's fine. But try and kick the field goal when you don't go for it on 4th and 3s and things like that. But I think if you're able to do that, this offense should be good enough against this Oklahoma State defense to keep moving the ball. If this run game continues to play like they did against Texas Tech, like they did against Iowa State, you should be able to move the ball well enough. Quinn Ewers has got a lot to prove. We talked about his struggles against Oklahoma State last year, but we mentioned they're indoors this year. He's feeling better. There's no weather to affect his arm. Xavier Worthy's hand is not broken this season. So there are some positives going into this game that he didn't have last season.
And as you cited yesterday, Jerry, Central Florida, I thought this was a great point. Texas didn't play Central Florida, but if you look at their roster,
yes.
They've got a couple of dynamic receivers. They got a really athletic receiving tight end. And they got to have good, stable running backs for Gus Malzahn. And they put 45 points on the board on this team and made them play from behind, and they never got back up off the deck after falling behind. This Texas team is Central Florida, but better.
That's right.
With Mitchell and Worthy, with J.T. Sanders, with the stable of running backs. They can come at Oklahoma State and really attack that 3-high defense and, what Central Florida did, but more talented.
Yeah, no doubt about it, because UCF is one of the teams that can stress the field horizontally, vertically, with multiple wide receivers and a tight end that can stretch the field and a running back that can make big plays. So that showed up against Texas Tech for UCF, because UCF had about 485 yards in Lubbock, and Texas Tech struggled to contain that. And you knew going into the Texas game, if Texas executed, they would have similar success that UCF did, because Texas has better players at those positions. But UCF's a rare team in the Big 12 that has similar personnel to Texas and can attack the field the same way and put that stress on the defense.
There you go, Patrick. As the Bud Lights are flowing and the pitchers are flowing, now the Texas fight chants are getting cranked up. You can hear this crowd, this Longhorn fans here at Jay Gilligan's are getting excited about this game. And I think it was for your great point right there. That's what they were getting fired up about.
They are.
Go after them. No, Texas has the talent advantage. There's no doubt. As we said yesterday, even if you give them Ollie Gordon, if Ollie Gordon's the best player on the field, and you'll hear it coming up in our next hour with Sam Mays, the All-American lineman, former All-American lineman at Oklahoma State. He said this. He said, if Ollie Gordon's the best player, the next 10 best players are for Texas.
That's a great point he made. I mean, and look, and I'll tell you who has to have a man's game today, and that is Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon will drop his pads. He's a high-to-low runner, but you can catch him running high at times. But Ollie Gordon, for Oklahoma State, to his point, Ollie Gordon has to be the best player on the field today. If you leave, if this game ends and you say Ollie Gordon may have been the third or fourth best player on the field today, that's probably not good news for Oklahoma State. He needs that. He needs to have a Doak Walker moment in this game for Oklahoma State, because if Texas shuts down the run game, Gordon had 12 carries for 25 yards in that loss in Orlando to UCF. Oklahoma State had 25 attempts for 52 yards. If Texas limits the Oklahoma State run game like that today, the Cowboys are in for a long afternoon.
Yeah, and Patrick, we saw that with Taj Brooks last week. That was their main weapon. He had 95 yards, but it never felt like he had a real impact on the football game because Texas was so overwhelming in every other phase of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look at, if you're able to, in the second half, they're going to come out and run Ollie Gordon because it breaks traditional football sense. If you're down by 14 or 20 or whatever they've been down, they continue to go to the run game. The defenses play off of the line a little bit more, and Ollie Gordon gets loose in that second half, and it allows him to get back into games. Texas has to come out of that second half with the same intensity against Ollie Gordon. And if you shut him down at the beginning of the second half and you already have that lead and you're able to keep playing from ahead, it becomes a much bigger game because then it becomes an Allen Bowman game. And I think for Texas, that's what you'd like to see.
Did it feel to you, Jerry, and we'll get a timeout and come back and keep this conversation going. We're going all the way to kickoff at 11 o'clock. That seemed to me that Texas coming out of the Oklahoma game, Sark was talking about every game's a Big 12 title game. Felt like they may be playing a little tight, especially in the Houston game when things would start to, and then Quinn got hurt. Then they had to survive the two Quinn injury games with Malik, and then everybody was on pins and needles. It felt like to me the Iowa State game, the second half of the Iowa State game, they calmed down. They something about the offensive lineman popping off and poking the bear. It just seems like they played a more relaxed brand of football since the Oklahoma State game, and certainly what we saw last Friday.
So this team, obviously the Big 12 championship was the goal, the national championship the dream. Matthew McConaughey said that better than anybody ever could. But after that Oklahoma State loss, it's tough emotionally coming off that game, especially a game you thought you should have won. But then they had to fight through the injuries at that point in time. And that was a banged-up football team headed into the U of H game. I mean, Jahdae Barron wasn't going to play. They had to play him in that game. They didn't have it. Jake Majors played in that game. They had to play guys that physically probably shouldn't have been out there. So they had to fight through that injury. But then, Aaron, the thing I've been saying is, look, against TCU, it turned into the NCAA basketball tournament. That was the round of 64. Iowa State was the round of 16. And so Texas Tech, today's your round of 8. So what my point is, it got to the NCAA basketball tournament. Today's your round of 8. And it's been survive in advance, win in advance, just like the NCAA basketball tournament. And if you win today, you have a chance to go to the Final Four. But they really had to battle through those injuries.
Yeah, I think people forget how banged up they were in the secondary in that Houston game.
Yes.
Jahdae Barron was going to sit, and then they had to take the boot off and get him out there. And
Kelvin Banks was hobbled. I was at the Texas OU game. Kelvin Banks was limping around the field. JT Sanders couldn't really do anything. That was a beat-up team physically. After Alabama, after then Wyoming, after those games, and then after OU, they had to get through that injury part of the season. And once I think they started to get more healthy and they could breathe a little bit, and then it started Sark's coaching revenge tour against TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and now the last piece will be a win today over Oklahoma State.
Well said, getting healthy. Sark talked about it. And, right before TCU, He's talking about everybody is practicing again. Everyone's
Yes.
back on the field. Now that led, that game, you saw Jonathan Brooks go down, but that's the one significant injury they're still dealing with. Ryan Watts will not play today. Everyone else should be good to go for the Longhorns in a chase for a championship. We'll come back live at Jay Gilligan's in downtown Arlington, 1 mile from AT&T Stadium. Our pregame coverage rolls on the Horn, 101.9 AM 1260, and stream it on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Coverage, not just a game, it's a championship game. Texas and Oklahoma State for the championship of the Big 12 in 2023. The Longhorns' final game ever as a member of the Big 12 Conference. I guess technically they will be if they play in the bowl games, but against Big 12 competition, this is it for the Longhorns. A conference they helped found back in the mid-'90s along with Oklahoma, and one of the founding partners, obviously, and now moving on. But a chance to win it and go out with a championship. I think it's fair to say if they play well, they'll win this game. If they play really well, they can drill Oklahoma State today and really make a statement. If they play poorly, they obviously could lose this game as well. Jerry Hamilton has been great with us all day, yesterday and today from inside Texas. Patrick Davis holding it down in the Horn headquarters. And one thing I was told last night from a good friend who's a big Texas Ranger fan, Jerry, it's one thing because a lot of Ranger fans, and Patrick, you can weigh in on this too. Ranger fans last year were like, if we don't win it, we're built to win and be good for a long time, kind of like we're talking about with Texas. But these opportunities don't come around that often. Texas has a chance to seize this opportunity, much like the Texas Rangers did in this right here in Arlington. Seize it. Because, yes, the Rangers are going to be good again next year and the next year, but you just don't know. And the Longhorns have a chance to potentially play for a championship with this team that's got a ton of culture, that's got a ton of defense. It seems to be getting healthier and better right now. It's one thing to talk about what's coming with the future, but there's an opportunity in front of you right now. That's got to be the message from Sark today.
No, absolutely. And look, this is 3 years ago, 5-7. Those guys had to believe in the process. They had to trust in a staff that they went 5-7, but they were undergoing a culture change, and I think that term is used too much, but it certainly applies to when Sark came to Texas. And this staff has done that, and the kids that have stuck with this process, they can now see the ultimate reward. I mean, there's just not a better reward for the kids that stuck out with this process than to be able to seize this moment in front of them right now and leave their college careers to Vondre Sweat, some of those guys, Xavier Worthy, who will go on to the NFL, as Big 12 champions and possibly get into the college football playoff. Today's kind of a culmination, if they win this, of all the things they went through as a program. There were some rough losses at Iowa State. Bo Davis's bust rant was needed. Giving up 57 and losing at home to Kansas, right? Yeah. This team went through a lot to get to this point. And I really think Sark is going to tell these guys, look, y'all trusted in me to get us to this point. And we are so proud of the guys that trusted in this process and helped us get here. Now is our opportunity to go prove in a final way all that work we put in, what we were all common goal we all shared, from a coaching staff to the players to the strength and conditioning to the recruiting office. They went through some tough times to get here today, and this is a chance to finish that race. And I expect this team to play really well. I think this is going to be the most physical game Texas has played. Now, I'm not saying that's what it takes to win, but I think you're going to see the most physical game Texas has played since Alabama.
Patrick, seize the day. Carpe diem here for the Longhorns because, yes, the future, I think, feels bright for the Longhorns. But as I mentioned with the Rangers, this team is built right now. And if you win this game today and things break your way the rest of the day, you have a month with Steve Sarkisian and this coaching staff to game plan whoever your opponent is. And I think Texas showed at Alabama with time to prepare. They can play with anybody in the country. That's got to be the message from the locker room today. Yeah,
and I mean, what did Quan Cosby say yesterday? Be present. That's the you just have to let them know it's 11 a.m. game. You guys are first. You set the tone for the day. You get to go out there and show everybody that Texas is the best football team in the country. You get to go show them that. And you don't have to say, you don't have to worry about anything else. Go show them that you're the best football team in the country by going out and handle business. Like Jerry just said, be the more physical team. Win both lines of scrimmage. If we win both lines of scrimmage, it's going to be real hard for anybody to beat us. So go win both those lines of scrimmage. For Quinn Ewers, go prove those guys that didn't say you were a second team all Big 12 quarterback, that Will Howard was better than you. Go prove them wrong. To everybody, to Jade Barron, to Manny Muhammad. Get those guys. Hey, go out there and prove to everybody that Texas is what they are, and then we're all going to have a good laugh when Brett Yormark has to hand the trophy over to Sark.
That's it. Hey, look, if Brett Yormark has to hand that trophy to Sark, I think you're going to see the biggest grin.
How many phones will be out for the players taking pictures?
Oh, my gosh. The biggest grin on Sark's face, CDC's face. Everybody associated with the University of Texas athletics and football program. I think those will be some of the biggest grins in a long time at the University of Texas.
Agreed. Well said by all sides. And that's the opportunity. And that would be the I love that you quoted Quan from yesterday. Be present. Quan played on a team in 2008 that deserved a better fate.
Yes.
Right. The gauntlet they went through, the loss at Tech, derailed, and they had every opportunity to play Florida for the national championship that year, and it didn't happen. This may happen to this team, but at least at this moment, be present. Now, Quan's team went on to beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl and still finished a great season. They didn't get to finish and then play for the ultimate goal, but this is an opportunity to be present, be at this game, and leave a mark and leave a statement. And who knows? Like I say, if you win this game and things fall your way, Jerry, you're going to doubt Texas if they have a month to prepare for Georgia or anybody else. They may not win the game, but Texas, with this defensive front, with a month to get healthy, and Sark to design a game plan.
Yes,
anything can happen.
No, anything can happen. That's the thing. You just want to get to the playoff. If you get to the playoff, anything can happen, right? Look at TCU. Who thought TCU was going to beat Michigan last year?
Yeah,
and get a chance to play for a national title. Now, you knew they were going to get blown out by Georgia. Texas is much more prepared and would be a more talented team in the right places to compete with a Georgia. But if you can just get there, like you said, and get fully healthy. Not fully healthy. Jonathan Brooks, obviously, outside of Jonathan Brooks, season-ending injuries. But give Sark a month to prepare and give these guys a month to really get focused for one game. You saw what happened when they prepped for a while for Alabama. Sark was on point against Alabama. The defense was on point against Alabama. I think you would see a similar game from Texas if they got into the college football playoff.
Yeah, well, that's the opportunity. But first things first, got to beat Oak State. You got to beat the Cowboys today as a more than 2-touchdown favorite. As I say, play well, you'll win the game, no matter the score. Play really well, you can lay a number. I really believe that. We'll come back. We'll pick up one more hour all the way. This place is starting to clear out a little bit because people are getting on the shuttles and headed over to AT&T Stadium where they'll pick up the Texas Fight Chance with about 65 or 70,000 fellow Longhorn fans. We are at Jay Gilligan's in downtown Arlington, Texas. Been here since 1979. Thanks to our friends at One Source Gas of Central Texas. That's my buddy Richard Strever and his team. If you have compressed gas needs, there's not a better person to call and a company to go with. OneSourceGasATX.com. Also, thank you to our friend Travis Tyndall and Tamara. Hayes City Store and Ice House, the destination location in Driftwood under the canopy of oak trees in the Texas Hill Country, and their new location in downtown Buda. Taste on Main. They're our partners getting us here. All this great coverage. We're coming back for one more hour ahead of the game here on the Horn. Pregame coverage for Texas Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. Thanks to everybody that made it happen. Patrick Davis, of course, doing the extra hour yesterday so we could be at Terry Black's Barbecue in downtown Dallas, which was phenomenal. Thank you to Terry and the team over there on South Main Street, Deep Ellum. That was a lot of fun. And then taking in the game last night. What a game it was. Washington upsets Oregon. I don't guess it's an upset. The Vegas odds makers had a double digits, but Washington just did what they did back in October and beat them again. And Kalen DeBoer can really coach, and Michael Penix is a really good quarterback, safe to say, but really a good game. Hopefully that's the kind of game we get all day today. Longhorn fans would like to be a little less nervous than Washington fans were last night as Oregon was making their comeback. But if we get anything like that today, Championship Saturday, Texas, Oklahoma State, the early game, 3 o'clock. It's the SEC Championship game, Georgia, Bama. Tonight you have the ACC Championship with Louisville and Florida State. And that's the one the Longhorn fans will be watching most attentively. Also Michigan and Iowa in the Big Ten Championship game, which likely a punt fest.
Yes.
Yeah, a punt fest in Indianapolis.
We hit on it earlier in the show, but a good start. And it doesn't mean you have to go touchdown, bang, bang. But positive drives to start the football game are huge. Look what happened Washington versus Oregon last night in that game. Oregon went 3 and out their first 2 possessions. Washington had sustained drives, and while they did get points, they got 3, they got 7, right? They didn't score 2 touchdowns. Sustained drives while the Oregon offense had 2 3 and outs and they're sitting on the sidelines. That's what you cannot happen for Texas. They have to. I'm not saying they got to go score touchdown, bang, bang. But they have to have success early in this game offensively, because what happened with Oregon, while Oregon came back and took the lead in that game, man, it's almost like a basketball game, right? When you get down early and you fight so hard to get back in the game, then take the lead, how much do you really have left in your tank? And Washington won that game, even though Michael Penix had another really good game running the football. Oregon defense, Jordan Birch went out with an injury. The Oregon defense got a little worn down late in that game, and Washington closed that game out with the run. That Washington game was similar to how we've seen Texas close out games this year.
It really was. I was so impressed with Washington last night to take that 10-0 lead, and you're spot on. I mean, the opposite would be true for Texas. If you let Oklahoma State come out and gain some positive drives and
you
build
feel
a
a lot
lead,
of pressure at that point.
Texas, all of a sudden the pressure drops on the Texas sidelines, and Oklahoma State has belief. And look, they've won 7 of the last 10 in this matchup.
Yep.
Mike Gundy has, I'm sure, trumpeted that. But if you take the advantage early, but for Washington to build that 10-point lead and then give up the lead, but come back and outscore Oregon 14-7 in the fourth quarter, and Michael Penix. Did Michael Penix win the Heisman last night? We talked about the winner of that game could be Heisman. The odds immediately shifted to Jalen Daniels.
Right.
At Jalen Daniels at LSU to be the favorite now.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, Jalen Daniels had monster games, big moments, but he's also on a 3-loss team. But I think really, I think Michael Penix should win the award. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that will absolutely happen, but if I had a vote, which I don't, I would be voting for Michael Penix. I mean, he's had another good season.
13-0 after an 11-2 year, or 12-2 last year.
Yeah, 12-2 to 11-2 last year to 13-0 this year. 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He had 32-8 last year. If I had a vote, I would vote for Michael Penix. But I do think the East Coast in this. I mean, look, Bo Nix got East Coast attention because he was a former Auburn player that was having a big season for the Ducks.
Very true.
And I think that's always the struggle with West Coast guys, save Caleb Williams.
Well, he won it last year. We'll see if it stays on the West Coast. I think Michael Penix, very deserving, because his performance in that fourth quarter last night was really, really big time to get his team to the victory. And, yeah, the whole body of work, what he's done for this season and last, really, really impressive. And Kalen DeBoer, maybe the National Coach of the Year when it's all said and done for what he's done with that program. Patrick, Texas got to see that Washington team up close last year in the Alamo Bowl. That's a really good team. They didn't let Oregon run the ball last night. Their leading rusher had 35 yards on the ground, Jordan James. This was a really team effort, and Washington made the statement. They set the tone for conference championship weekend. Longhorns would like to make their statement today.
Yeah, it is. It's funny looking back on the bowl game last year and realizing how good of a bowl game the Alamo Bowl got last year. But
yes.
But if you look at it in the reality of, it's a weird season just overall when you say there's still 4 undefeated teams as of Saturday of championship weekend. There's still 4 undefeated teams, and we don't know who the Heisman winner is, and it's not because there's 2 really good choices. It's because we go, well, people like Michael Penix, but they think the wide receivers are really good, so he's getting help, so he's never gotten the full credit for how good he is. Or it could go to Jalen Daniels, but he's 3 loss. It's just a weird season in college football. And, for Texas, you get to say that this is the season where if everything's being weird, then be the team that comes back and gets in the college football playoff by beating Oklahoma State and walk out of the Big 12, make Brett Yormark upset, get Undertaker to hand Tavondre Sweat or Quinn Ewers that WWE belt they made for the player of the game that's going to be handed out after the game.
That's right.
You get all that stuff. By the way, the title belt looks okay. The title belt on the field, not a big fan of. But it looks a little
I haven't
hokey.
seen that yet.
I'll send you a picture of it.
Send it to me, Patrick. Steve Sarkisian, by the way, doing an interview right now from the field with College Game Day. Sark already talking college football this morning over there at AT&T Stadium just after 10 o'clock across the street from where we are right now. Big opportunity for the Longhorns. He's talking to the College Game Day guys. And, you got Nelly at halftime. Don't forget, if you're going to this game, you got Nelly at halftime. So you got to deal with that as a player. And Sark, you're going to have a little Super Bowl feel. They're going to probably a little longer halftime. And the crowd. But, this is one where you saw last night, man. Bring the championship. Texas has a chance to be just fine in this game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, look, there was a video circulating on Twitter, by the way, of Cedric Baxter getting his hip kind of checked out by UT medical staff there. He's on the field. And, boy, he did not look close to 100%. I'll say that.
Who?
Cedric Baxter. I thought that was interesting. The video just on Twitter.
The Longhorn running back Cedric Baxter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's also talk in Stillwater of Ollie Gordon is, he's been limping around and he got banged up again in that BYU game. He's one of those guys, kind of like Xavier Worthy. He'll limp off the field and then come back.
Yes.
But this, keep an eye on Cedric Baxter today.
Keep an eye on Cedric Baxter. Keep an eye on Jaden Blue then and Savion Red, right? I mean, that's so if Cedric Baxter, if he takes a hit at the wrong angle today, that could be another potential issue for him based on that video I just watched of him on the field in the UT Medical kind of working with that hip there, putting pressure on different areas around that hip where he has a hip pointer. And he literally jumped. I mean, I was like, wow, this guy's going to take hits today? That didn't look too promising.
Yeah, Cedric Baxter, the freshman. And, he's a freshman who, as we talked about, you given us this info as a recruiting, analyst and expert, Jerry. State of Florida doesn't have the football programs like the state of Texas, right? Cedric Baxter coming out of the state of Florida as a 5-star player, he still needs some armor on his body.
Yes.
He needs to get in the Texas weight room. You project C.J. Baxter 2-3 years from now, 235 pounds at his size. I mean, he's going to be a beast. But right now, he's still kind of a freshman. And, there's Cedric Baxter. But he's got to learn to take those hits because if it's a hip pointer, those things hurt. But it's kind of a pain tolerance thing, Jerry. You're not going to get more hurt, but at the same time, you're going to take some pops on that.
Now, you are. I mean, you're going to fall on it. You're going to take a helmet on it. But, yeah, Cedric Baxter, I mean, for those who've seen him, I think when he came out of high school, people are like, oh, my gosh, this guy's 6'1.5", 215, 213 pounds. But I would say all the time on Inside Texas, on Texas football, and I did on air with you guys, look, he isn't even close to physically developing. He kind of reminds me of Larry Johnson, former Penn State running back, played in the NFL a long time. He's a 215 pounds. That's a natural 215 pounds. They don't have the athletic periods. The setup's not the same in Florida high school football. Sometimes there's 3 fully paid high school coaches at public schools. So he came to Texas not even close physically to what he will be. I think you've seen his lower body starting to develop ahead of his upper body. He's going to look like a totally different player come fall camp next year.
Yeah, maybe 225, and but that armor, Patrick, helps take these hits, right? I mean, it's a violent game. In high school, you're not getting hit like you are playing Alabama or playing Oklahoma or playing in the Big 12, and we've seen him, limp off the field quite a bit, and that's just a learning curve, and then building that body armor it's going to take to last also. We've seen Jonathan Brooks do it, transform his body before his unfortunate injury. He was playing as well as any running back in the country. But for this game today, we'll see what the health of C.J. Baxter is. It's certainly something to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look at it, the good news is no matter what, at the end of this game, you got pretty much a month off until you play again. So
that's right.
It is it's going to hurt, and you're going to take those hits. Hold on to that football, grip it tight, and, if you got to limp off the field and take 2 plays off, you got to take it. You got Jaden Blue, you got Savion Red, you got some other guys who can come into the game, but you get back out there. It's I saw the same video I think that Jerry saw, and it is. You see the jump of him. that's not very confidence inspiring. And then you see the rest of it, and he's working on him, and he's taking it. So I think that it's going to be the pain threshold of, hey, man, this is going to hurt some, but, the great ones get hurt.
We need you. Yeah, and we need you right now. And if he doesn't, if he's not 100% and can only give you a little bit, we've seen Jaden Blue with give him a crease and he can crease you. And then, boy, we've seen him as the Red Cat, the Wildcat package with Savion Red. He's from right down the road here. This guy playing near his home, is he not?
Grand Prairie High School,
right
absolutely.
Up the street.
Hey, led Grand Prairie to the playoffs, and for those that follow high school football, that's no small feat because South Grand Prairie is all where the talent is. Grand Prairie doesn't get to the playoffs very often at all. He led that Grand Prairie team to the playoffs, was district MVP. He was such a competitive I say he runs pissed off, and that's a compliment. He's such a competitive guy that when I stopped by Grand Prairie to talk to Tony Tatemy, the longtime college assistant who was the head coach at Grand Prairie at the time, he said we have to tell him to dial it back in practice. We have to have a healthy team on Friday nights.
Yeah, and I drove right through Grand Prairie on my way from the hotel to here, right down 360. So, yeah, he's playing in his own backyard. So, Savion Red, keep an eye on that young man today,
and then
number 17.
That's not even to mention running out or catching pass out of the backfield. You got Keelan Robinson that can come in the game as well and spell and do some things that, honestly, you haven't seen a ton of this year. So, it's, I don't know if Oklahoma State's going to be prepared for necessarily Keelan Robinson coming out of the backfield a bunch, but if you need to have him, that's another option you got. A lot of options in that backfield.
100% agree, and that's the difference in this game. That's why if it sounds like Texas fans or we are overconfident, you talk about paths to victory, Jerry. There's really only one path to victory for Oklahoma State in this game. Ollie Gordon's got to get off. He's got to have a big game against the number one run defense in the conference and one of the best in the country. That they've got to have Texas make some mistakes, and they got to shorten the game. I think even Mike Gundy would tell you that. Texas, as Sark has called his team versatile, there's a lot of paths to victory for Texas here. They could win this game with their special teams. They could win this game with their defense and forcing turnovers against a quarterback who's thrown double-digit interceptions. They could win this game with multiple different weapons on their offense having a big game today. That's the difference when you've got the big talent advantage. Longhorns have multiple paths to victory today. Oklahoma State really has to have the game fall their way.
One other injury thing, Dre Bledsoe in street clothes with a jersey on. So one of the backup defensive linemen, a disruptor for Texas. Not a major player for the Longhorns this year. He will be the next 2 years, but he is not dressed out today for this game as well.
All right, we'll take a timeout, come back, and Patrick will take you the rest of the way. If you're not going to this game and you've been listening to us all morning, we appreciate it so very much. Live from Arlington and live from Austin with Patrick. You're going to hear from Sam Mays before we wrap this thing up, the former All-American lineman at Oklahoma State. Great conversation. You want to know more about this Oklahoma State team and their path to the victory here, how Mike Gundy turned this thing from a miserable start to a championship opportunity. You'll hear that coming up. But, Patrick, if you're not going to the game, tune in. Jerry, you'll be a part of it too. The On Texas Football channel, the YouTube channel of Inside Texas. I will be hosting the in-game watch as I have all season long, the watch along. Rod Babers will join us. You will join us. Bobby Burton will join us. And we'll watch the game with you and talk through it just like we've talked through this pregame for 3 hours as it happens. And that's on the On Texas Football channel of YouTube. The watch along, which has been a blast doing it all year. We're going to do it one more time.
I can't
hopefully
wait.
2 more times.
Hopefully maybe 3 more times.
Maybe
Definitely 2 more times.
That is On Texas Football. Just do a search on your YouTube. That's where we'll be starting about 10 minutes before 11 o'clock. And we look forward to seeing you there as well. We'll come right back. Patrick Davis has got you. We're live in Arlington. We're live in Austin. It's the Horn pregame coverage of the Big 12 Championship game on 101.9 AM 1260. Stream it on the Horn app and always at hornfm.com.
Back on the Big 12 Championship Pregame show here on the Horn. Patrick Davis here, Aaron Hogan and Jerry Hamilton getting ready for the game in Arlington, but they're signed off for the day, so it's just me taking you in. We're going to play that Sam Mays interview, giving you some good insight into Oklahoma State before they get to the final part of this show, but we do want to keep the show rolling right now. Talking a little bit more about this matchup, there is some keys to the game. I'll mind you guys, the text line is open. I'm here in the studio, so the text line is open, 512-447-3776. We've already got some text coming through. We've got people making some score predictions in here. We've got someone who says if the team is thinking as much about what comes after today as you were talking about it, they're in trouble. I don't think they're thinking about it as much as we are. We get paid to talk about all the scenarios, so we are going to talk about all the scenarios. I think what Quan Cosby said on the show the other day really is kind of the thought process, which is be present. You're ready to play this game. This is the game. This is what they've been doing, where they didn't look past a Texas Tech. That should give you more confidence that this team knew they had to beat Texas Tech to get in, and they did it. They did it in extreme fashion. And so you'd hope that they would be able to continue that path on playing this team. In reality, when we look at this game, it really comes down for Oklahoma State to one player. We know, I think there's going to be points. Jerry Hamilton brought up a good point that they're probably going to go to the screen game. They're going to try and get other guys involved. I think Alan Bowman, the quarterback, is probably going to try and get the ball out quick, throw some short passes. It has been a problem for Texas throughout the year to kind of get those slants and screens and short passes. So we could see that as well. We could see some passes where that becomes a problem as well. But Ollie Gordon, this running back for Oklahoma State, is going to be the real key factor. If Texas can slow him down, I don't think you can stop him completely, but if you can slow him down, Texas is going to have a real good shot in this game. Here's Sark on Monday talking about Ollie Gordon and his performance, what he would be able to do in this game, and how they kind of have to slow him down.
Ollie Gordon's a heck of a player, and they have done a great job offensively of leaning into him, and he really signifies who their team is. I feel like he gets stronger as the game goes on, like a lot of big physical backs do. A lot of his best runs come in the second half when teams wear down. He has, the hard yards, the tough yards in between the tackles, but yet he has the big play, explosive play ability to create those long runs. And they've got a variety of run schemes with him, and they do a heck of a job out of the pistol formation where they can get to all their runs, and a lot of them look the same. And so your defensive line, your linebackers have to do a great job of fitting those things, and then you've got to tackle. And generally with a guy like him, one guy's not enough. And so our ability to populate the ball Saturday and making sure we're fitting these runs right is going to be really critical.
Yeah, and that's going to be a huge, huge piece for Texas in this game. If you're able to play the run defense that you've been playing for most of the season, if you're able to get in there and really get the stops, and, he's going to try and cut back, he's going to try and find those holes. So when you pair it up, it's going to be important on the linebackers and the edges to not break contain and allow him and keep him in that box. And, he'll get those extra yards. Those great running backs that twist and turn and move their body and get the ball out and get 3 or 4 yards, those are going to happen. You can't get upset if he's averaging 3.5, 4 yards. The problem is you don't want him to be averaging 5 or 6, which he's been doing for most of the season. That's when you start to get in problems. The other thing Stark mentioned in this clip is his yards in the second half. And there's two parts to that. One, it wears you down. It just beats on you to have a running back running into you all game. It beats on you. And so running backs, there are some that just get better as the game goes on. But one of the things that Mike Gundy has done is he breaks a tendency of normal football, which is they've been down in a lot of these games. And one of the things they've done to come back, and Texas Tech did this to a point too, which is run the ball even when you're down. And the BYU game is a perfect example. Oklahoma State's down to BYU at half. 24-6, I believe. They're down. They continue to run the ball on BYU. They continue to run it in the second half when BYU thinks, okay, now we got to come out, back off a little bit, don't let anything over the top. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma State walks down the field and they can score. And now they're back in the game. Momentum is shifted back to Oklahoma State. So for Texas, that second half starting off, making sure that defensive line and Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy and Ethan Burke and Trill Carter and everybody on that line needs to be up for it. everybody needs to be ready to go starting the second half because you're hoping the first half, Oklahoma State's not been a great first half team most of the season. Now they could be in this, Texas could come out and not have a great start. They've done that before too. I think, though, that Texas should be able to get some points on the board early, and whether it's a 17-3. I know they were only up 6-3 in Iowa State. I think it'll be a little bit better game for Texas offensively with Quinn Ewers feeling a little bit better. We mentioned that C.J. Baxter is a little bruised up as well, but he looks like he's going to be a go for today and get into the game and have a good game as well today. You've got that running back room we just talked about. So Texas offensively, you don't necessarily worry. Now the question is, can you score in the 30s or can you get to the 40s? In the 40s, the real question is how much game control can you have? How much clock control can you have? Can you get Oklahoma State off the field? Can you stop Ollie Gordon on a first or second down and get him no gain and make them have to make a play on third down? Texas is really good at not allowing teams to get off it, or to not allowing teams to pick up first downs on third down. So if you're able to make them go into third and mediums, third and longs, that's a great way for Texas to continue their trend and get better and better into this game and get closer to where they need to be. When we come back, we can take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get into a little bit more about the defense and get into some players that are going to be big for Texas in this defense and who needs to step up with the news that Ryan Watts is not going to be playing. There's a little bit of lack of depth in the defense. A lot of guys pretty banged up, but there's some guys who could step up in this game and make a name. And that WWE title belt for player of the game or outstanding performance or whatever they call it, there's a good chance it could be going to the defense in this game, especially if they stop Ollie Gordon. We're going to keep the Big 12 Championship Pregame show here on the Horn going right after this break, thanks to our sponsors, One Source Gas, and of course, Hayes City Store and The Taste on Main. We're hoping you're enjoying getting us ready for the Big 12 Championship game. We got about 30 minutes till they say it's kickoff, and then it'll be another 10 minutes. I don't know when the actual kickoff time is, but we're getting closer and closer. I know everybody's amped up for the game. I appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll be right back on the Horn Pregame show here on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Horn Championship Pregame Show right here on the Horn for the Big 12 Championship game. Getting ready almost about 30 minutes from scheduled kickoff here on the Horn. I do want to talk. We're going to take a quick segment here because we're going to get you to an interview with Sam Mays really breaking down Oklahoma State. It's going to be a good interview, so we're going to play that for you next segment. So this one will be a little shorter, but we do want to talk about the defense for Texas. The defense in this game, one of your big key players for this game who's going to come out is Manny Muhammad. Manny Muhammad, a freshman, is going to be targeted in this game with Ryan Watts out. He is from the Dallas area. He has played in Jerry World twice in 2 state championship games. He is not going to be too small for this moment. The moment will not be too big for him. But if you want to talk about one player that I think is going to be a real key factor in this game, it is going to be Manny Muhammad and what he can do. And if you can create turnovers, against Oklahoma State, they don't stand a chance in this game. Now, if you have turnovers, the 2 games the game that against Oklahoma that they win, 3 turnovers for Oklahoma in that game against Oklahoma State. You cannot turn the ball over against this Oklahoma State team, but you can turn them over. And if that's the way you need to do that is by stopping Alan Bowman. Manny Muhammad is going to be a big part of that. Jade Barron, Sark talked this week about rotating safeties. It's an interesting piece because the safeties have been an issue for Texas. I like what he had to say on Thursday about rotating safeties and a key point to what Texas needs to do today to win this game.
From a safety perspective, we do play a lot of safeties, and I think it's been really beneficial for us. I think the rotations that we've been playing with on the defensive side of the ball is one of the reasons why we're able to play so well throughout the stretch of a game. I know we had a little lull in there where we've kind of relaxed some, but when you really watch us, especially at critical moments, our guys look fresh and they play physical, and so the safeties are no different than that. And we do have a good room there. I think Coach Gideon's done a really nice job with those guys of working with the communication aspect of it. Naturally, you're going to have some of those guys that are a little better at communicating than another. It's a skill set that maybe one guy has a little bit better than another. So we're always trying to make sure that we've got the right combination of guys out there that at minimum, we have one of those guys back there that is excellent at communicating. I think it is helpful that Jade is a great communicator at nickel or at star, and that Jalen Ford is a great communicator at linebacker, because if all those guys are on the same accord, generally the other 8 guys that are out there with them will be all tied together as well.
That's a big deal. Communication in this secondary, when they start taking short shots, when they start trying to have to throw the ball, if you have communication, that's where the turnovers can happen. That's where you can make Alan Bowman the quarterback that he actually is. WPI Parts Guy on the text line, 4914 Horns. Hook 'em. I love it. I'll give my score prediction next segment. And Sam Haynes talking about Oklahoma State coming up here on the Horn Championship Pregame Show.